Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Okay, so for a damped harmonic excitation, let us start this now and then try to obtain the solution. I can write down my equation of motion as mu double dot cu dot plus ku is equal to p naught sine omega t. Okay, so now I have the damping term as well. So again, for this solution, okay, I would need to get what is the total response. Okay, and that would be again obtained as sum of particular solution and sum of complementary solution. Okay, now particular solution for this type of equation where I have u double dot, u dot and ku dot, and the right hand side I have only sine omega t. Okay, so u of pt, okay, it would be of the form, remember that there is double differentiation and single differentiation both. So I would have the sine and cos both term. So I represent the general solution of the particular solution, sorry, here as c of sine omega t plus d of cos omega t. And then what I need to do, I need to find out these coefficients c and d. Okay. And how do I do that? Well, I substitute this in this equation here. Okay. And then I compare the coefficients of sine omega t and then the coefficients of cos omega t, which is equal to p naught sine omega t. So once I do that, I will have c and d here, c and d here with some coefficient. I would get two equations in c and d. Okay, and then after solving I can get the expression for c. Okay, and then I can get the expression for d. Okay, what I would like you to do, take 5 minutes, substitute this particular solution in this equation here. Okay, and then derive the expression for c and d. Can you do that? Take 5 minutes and derive that expression. Okay, know that you can just look it up in your book and do that, but remember that would be harmful to you. It won't be any, like, if you want to actually benefit from this practice, I would suggest you to derive everything. Okay, why? I don't want you to remember anything. Okay, I want you to be so good at deriving this equation that even if you forget, which you will, I can assure you that you will forget a lot of things here. There is so many equations, but if you understand how we have arrived or how do we come up with those solutions, then you don't need to remember. You can go ahead and actually derive that. And all this differential equation solution is not something new that I'm teaching you. You would have already done that in your differential equation class, in your calculus class, either in your undergrad, okay, or your graduate classes. Okay, so make sure that you practice, make sure that you don't have to do or spend additional time on your own remembering all those things. Do it always, practice always on your own. Okay, so get this expression right now. Okay, get the expression for c and d. Okay, and then see what you get.
Sir, I have calculated coefficient C and D. C is the k minus m omega square divided by k minus m omega square का whole square minus c omega square का whole square.
Minus c omega square.
C square omega square. हाँ.
Okay. I think it should be a plus here. Okay. How about the other d?
D is p naught c omega.
Is there a p naught here as well?
Yes, sir. No, sir. P naught with the c.
P naught with the
P naught also is there, sir. D with D also.
yes, p naught is there. I'm writing p naught here.
Yes, sir.
And then I have, is this correct? C omega.
Yes.
I think there should be a negative sign. What do you think?
Yes, sir.
There should be a negative sign here.
Yes, so there is a negative sign.
Okay. So just fix that negative sign here and here in your answer. and that is all right. Okay, so this is basically when you solve this, you will get a solution. Okay, and what you could do here possibly, can I write my omega n equal to under root k by m? That I know, right? Okay. So I'm further going to simplify this c and d. So let us take k out from here so that it becomes p naught by k. Okay, and this becomes 1 minus omega square divided by k by m. So if I take k out, this is what I would get. And in here as well, what I would get as 1 minus omega k. Remember, there's omega square here, and here is k by m square plus, if you take the, or just let me write this as c here as c omega square. Now, you also need to know, remember, we said that damping ratio is C by C critical. Okay, and which was C by 2m omega n, correct? This was the expression for zeta. So in this case, I can write as C, okay, C by m, okay, as equal to, or I can write this as, let me just write C equal to 2 zeta m omega n. Okay, so if you substitute it here, what you would get, remember p naught by k would be there. Okay, this you would get as 1 minus omega by omega n whole square, and here you would get omega by omega n square to the power square. Okay, and c basically you would get as 2. Now in the denominator, the c omega.
Sir, in later you have written the C term where CW by K will come in that denominator.
Where are you saying?
In last step, sir, we have taken K square from denominator, so we have to write CW by K. The whole
Correct.
square there.
Yes, that is correct. So here it would be C omega by K. Yeah, that would make sense actually. Okay, so that this can be written as 2 zeta omega by omega n whole square. Okay, using this relationship here. Okay, so I can write down my C as this. Okay, similarly here I would need to, for the D also I would take K from the numerator and K square from the denominator outside, so that I get this one as P naught by K times minus 2 zeta omega by omega n, and this I would get as, okay, 2 zeta omega by omega n. All right, so these are the values of C and D. Okay, once you have the C and D, then you know what is your UP of T. Okay, you can just substitute it here in this expression, sine omega t plus d cos of omega t. Okay, the second solution is to find out the complementary solution to this, right? So for complementary solution, what do? You set up the right hand side of the differential equation equal to 0, and then basically you find out what is the solution to this equation here. Okay, and that we already know. I don't need to derive that again. We know that solution for homogeneous. So this is nothing but, what is this? This represents a damped free vibration. And for that, we had already obtained the solution as e to the power minus zeta omega n t. In the bracket, it would be a times cos omega dt plus b times sine omega dt. Okay, remember that I'm not writing down the coefficient a and b in terms of u0 and u0 0. They won't be the same what we had for the free vibration. Okay, because how do we get A and B? After I obtain my total solution U of t, then only I can substitute u0 and u dot 0 to obtain the value of these unknown coefficients. Okay, and which would be different here because there is a forced vibration term here as well. So it won't be same as the free vibration, this coefficient. So I'm writing down the generalized solution for this homogeneous second order linear differential equation. Okay, so the solution would be something like the total solution cos omega dt, where omega d is your basically damped frequency, and plus the particular solution c sine omega t plus d cos omega t. All right, now if you again look at these two, this solution here u of t, you can see I again have two frequencies, omega d and then omega, okay, which is the forcing frequency. Okay, however, now I also have a damping term which is exponential to negative power. Okay, and what happens as the time increases, this solution here becomes very small compared to the solution here, which is basically a sinusoidal oscillation. Okay, so this is called the transient vibration, and this is called the steady state vibration, because what happens after sufficient amount of time, my ut converges to steady state. This term vanishes because for a large time, this e to the power term is actually equal to a very large negative, basically equal to 0, so that this transient solution becomes 0. So now the definition should be clear to you. Okay, remember that we have not yet obtained A and B. You could do that using the initial condition u0 and u dot 0. I have left it because it becomes very convoluted, required right now, because we only need to deal with the steady. Okay, so in this case, let me call this u1 here and u2 here. And if I plot them individually, okay, if I plot these solutions individually, let us see how do they look like. The first one, of course, it would depend on the value of u1, a and b, okay, based on, but let us say it starts for some initial condition starts like this. Okay, because there is a damping term, the amplitude would decrease. Okay, and it would go to a value of 0 after some time. So this is my u1. Okay, then I have, now remember that this was for an undamped case vibrating at a constant amplitude. Okay, however, in this case it goes to 0. Now again I have second solution u2, which is the steady state solution, and this, let us say again it looks like something like this at some different frequency. It doesn't have to be larger. Okay, I'm just doing it for demonstration purpose here. Okay, this is my u of t. So this is basically u1, which is transient, and this solution dies down after some time, and this is the forced or the steady state solution. We call it steady state because steady state is defined as a state which exists after a long period of time. Okay, transient is defined, which is the state which exists at the beginning of time. And you would know that if you have done, like, from your undergraduate courses, or like, there was capacitance, and initially when the charge flows through it, the current flows through it, it is called transient current, and then there would be, like, steady state and what happens in that. So think in terms transient and steady state into something in terms of that. Okay, so the total solution looks like something like this. It starts like an undamped vibration, so nature would be something similar. So it would be something like this, but with time, what will happen? This would become smooth, and this converges. This solution, the total solution, this is the total solution, u1 plus u2, total solution. And after some time, this initial vibration which is happening due to transient vibration around the steady state, it dies down and the whole solution converges to a steady state. So here, this is a steady state solution. Okay, that's why these are called transient solution and steady state solution. Now we are doing damped system, with certain amount of damping in the system. I think these terms should become more clear to you. Okay. Anybody has any doubt in this?
Aditya here.
Yeah.
So as you said that while doing the analysis, we ignore the this transient part and consider only steady state part, but it can so happen that the addition of the two in the initial phase is greater than the maximum value we get in steady state. So won't that cause
Correct.
failure?
Yeah, correct. So that is a good point. So Aditya is asking that initially, if you think it, remember steady state would give you an amplitude which would always be less than this, right? Because this much of part is due to initial. So he's asking that if it so happens that my limit is somewhere around here, so it might not fail in steady state, but it might fail during the initial part. So remember, peak displacement might still be dictated by the initial response, which includes the transient response. So ignoring that, would it not affect the total or would it not affect our prediction of the failure? Well, in one word, yes, it would affect our prediction of the failure. We might predict it wrong, but usually what happens, these vibrations are much below the threshold failure limit actually. Okay, and remember that there are courses in non-linear structural dynamics in which we actually consider what happens after the system fails. As I said at the beginning of the course, we are only considering about the linear structures. So we are assuming that these limits are actually much below the threshold limit. Okay, but you are right that it can exceed the failure limit during the transient initial part itself, and that might lead to the failure. And when you are designing the system, then you should look into that. Okay, but typically what people do, they do not, I mean, if you design a system, you would not provide such a small margin actually, that because of the initial transient vibration, it would lead to failure. Usually you would provide sufficient margin. Okay, so that at operating frequency, whatever the amplitude it is undergoing, that does not lead to the failure. Okay, but for structures like under earthquake or something like that, okay, in those cases, what would happen? You would calculate the response, including the transient part and the steady state part both, and then you would compare. Okay, so the short answer here is that yes, it would affect. The peak response might still be dictated by the response in this part, which is greater than the steady state response, but have typically operate, if this is the failure, we have sufficient margin so that we do not have to consider that. Okay, that possibility. And usually what happens, we consider steady state. Failure is usually due to several of such cycles, and it is actually due to fatigue. I hope that many of you would have heard about fatigue. Fatigue is basically due to repetitive motion. Okay, a large number of repetitive motion that leads to elastic straining. It is still elastic, but due to straining, it leads to failure. Okay, so we are considering linear system, so we are not putting our emphasis in that region. Okay, so yes, it does affect. You need to be very careful regarding that. Okay, but we are only focusing right now our understanding on this part of the steady state. But when we will be actually doing earthquake, we will see that because earthquake, there is no sinusoidal excitation for an earthquake. So what we do the numerical evaluation of the response, and there we consider everything. We consider steady state, we consider transient state. Basically, we consider whatever response we get, we analyze that. Is that clear, Adit?
Yes, sir.
All right. So having said that, okay, be careful that the peak response would still be decided by the initial transient response, but typically we are operating much within the failure zone. So we are not going to get into that. And learning about the steady state might provide us basically the insight into the dynamic behavior of the system. Okay, so that's why we are focusing on the steady state, because my response converges to steady state after some time, and then we are only considering that. Okay, now if we are focusing on steady state, let us do, before going into our analyzing into steady state, remember that we investigated resonance for an undamped system. Now let us see what happens for a damped system. Okay, so now what we are going to do, we are going to investigate resonance for a damped system. Okay. So let us see what happens in case of resonance for a damped system. For this case, let me assume that the system is starting from rest. So there is no initial displacement, there is no initial velocity. Okay. And let me say I have this expression here. Okay. And because it is resonance, I'm assuming here just for the time being that omega is equal to omega n. Okay. Now in this case, my solution, a particular solution would still be valid. Okay. Because that is not the part of the overall solution. It is not the part of the solution that we get here. Okay. So I can write this as the total solution would still be valid. A cos omega dt plus b sine omega dt. Okay. So what I was saying about the solution being still valid, if you assume for a damped system, let me go back to here. If you assume for the damped system, okay, particular solution is this. So even with omega equal to omega n in this case, it is not equal to omega d. And remember, the damped solution is actually omega d here. Okay, so it is not the part of this solution. Okay, even when omega equal to omega n here, it is not still a part of the solution because that is omega d. Okay, so I get this. Okay, and then the second part of the solution, I already know the coefficients c and d. You have already calculated that. Okay, c sine omega d plus d cos omega dt. Okay, what I want you to do in this case, okay, for these conditions, okay, find out the value of c, find out the value of d, substitute it back to here. Once you substitute back to here, you will have this solution ut. Then you find out corresponding to u0 equal to 0 and u dot equal to 0, what are the values of a and what are the values of b. Okay. Once you have that, substitute it back to this equation and then give me the expression for u of t. Can you do that for me? Go ahead, take 4-5 minutes and then do that and get the expression for ut. And this would be the response for the resonance. Okay, when omega is equal to omega n. See what do you get as c and d. Okay, you can get c and d in terms of, let us say, either p naught by k or ust naught. You can write either in terms of either p naught by k. It's better if you write in terms of ust naught because we know then with respect to the static deformation how much is the amplitude is actually amplifying. Okay, so get the value of c, d and a and b for these conditions and then get the final expression for u of t. Yes, anyone?
Hello sir, this is Ravindra.
Yeah.
Sir, the value I got for A is equal to minus UST naught divided by 2 xi. And for B, I got minus UST naught into omega n divided by 2 omega d.
Now this is for what? This is for A.
Yes, sir.
And B you said is?
Minus UST naught into omega n divided by 2 omega d.
Minus ust naught and?
Multiplied by omega n divided by
Yes.
2 omega d.
2 omega d. Okay. All of you getting this? Should there be a negative sign here?
So I got A as positive, the same thing.
Yeah. There should
Yes,
be a
sir.
positive sign here. B
And
is okay.
D has the
B,
negative of
yeah.
Yes,
B
sir.
you can further again B also I think you would get as positive, right?
Yes, sir.
And you can further simplify. Remember, omega d is what? Omega n times 1 minus zeta square. So I can write this as omega n by omega d as 1 minus zeta square. So this would simplify this as omega st naught to 1 minus zeta square. So this is the value of b. Okay, and C, I think you can directly get numerator had 1 minus omega by omega n square. So this would directly be 0. And I think D, if when you substitute it, you had a 2 xi terms in the numerator, but 2 xi to the power square term in the denominator. Okay, so basically you would get T here as P naught by K, which I can write it like this. Okay, 2 xi. So once you substitute it in this expression here, okay, you will get the expression for ut as ust naught 1 minus 2 xi. Okay, and let me see, there would again be a term here, and because omega is equal to omega n, okay, the second term I can write, like let me write the first term. This would be equal to cos omega dt plus psi 1 minus psi square times sine omega dt minus, there would again be only d's would be surviving, so cos omega. Okay, and omega is omega n, so I could write it this as this. Okay, so this is the expression that I get for resonance. Okay, now let us say my system has, like, some realistic value of damping. So for realistic value of damping, that means zeta is smaller than let us say 10% or 20%. Okay, let us say even if it's 20%, this sine term is directly multiplied with zeta. So when you compare this term here with respect to this term, I can neglect this whole term here. Okay, and my omega d would also be equal to omega n because my damping is small. Okay, so I can further simplify this as ust naught divided by 2 zeta e to the power minus xi omega nt, and only cos omega dt would survive. The second term, because it is multiplied with zeta, would become 0, and then cos omega dt. Okay, so let me take one common here. Can write this whole term times cos omega dt, which I can write is as cos omega dt is cos omega nt. So I will simplified that. If you are not happy with this simplification, go ahead, program this in MATLAB, and then try to plot ut as a function of t, and then see what you get. I'm doing it like this just for analytical simplification. It's not that if you use that, you will get some different conclusion. Okay, so I get this expression. Now what I see here, okay, what I see here, my system ut, I have, it is vibrating with frequency omega n, and amplitude is actually this much. Okay, so ut is actually vibrating with this term, and the amplitude is represented by this. Now can you tell me, as t becomes very large, okay, as with time, does my amplitude become unbounded here? What will happen when the t is very large? This term would vanish, it would become 0. I would be left with -1, and then the amplitude that I would get would be minus 2 zeta. Okay, times cos omega nt for large t. Okay, and the only reason my amplitude does not become unbounded is because of this value zeta here. Okay, if you substitute, if it's an undamped system, and if you substitute zeta equal to 0, then I can directly see this would become infinity, and my response become unbounded, which is consistent with undamped system for which zeta is equal to 0. Okay, so what happens if you try to plot this expression? Again, my system, as the frequency matches omega by omega equal to omega n, the natural frequency of the system, what you will see, okay, let me just draw something like this. What you will see, the amplitude will start to increase. Okay, and it will keep on increasing. However, after certain amount of time, it would reach a steady state because there is a damping in the system, and it won't increase further. So the response now for the damped system would be bounded. If you write this as ut, what is this value here is basically this amplitude that I've just written. So this is ust naught by 2 xi negative, sorry, 2 zeta, and this would be ust positive ust times 2 zeta. Okay, so for a damped system, your response when there is omega equal to omega n, when applied frequency or the forcing frequency matches with the natural frequency of the system, you would see a gradual increase in the response of the system. However, it does not become unbounded. It is bounded by this amplitude that you see here. Okay, now let us come back. If my zeta is equal to 0, as I said, then only it would become unbounded. Okay, so remember we discussed that example of that, what was the name of that suspension bridge that I showed you? Anybody remembers?
Tacoma Narrow Bridge.
Tacoma Narrows Bridge, correct. So that, because I mean there the forcing was bent, but overall what happened, like, let us say that frequency matched, and there was Millennium Bridge as well, another bridge that I showed you that needed to be closed because there was a lot of vibration when people started walking on that. Okay, so in those cases where the amplitude start to become unbounded, one way to tackle that problem would be not make it system with very small damping, but add some additional damping in the system. Because what will happen if zeta is equal to 0, the damping, the response would be unbounded. But even if it's a very small damping, it won't become infinity. Okay, it would become 100 times ust naught. Okay, so I mean even that is very detrimental. So typically structure would have some inherent damping, let us say 2 to 5%. If that leads to the failure of the system, what you should do, increase some additional damping in the system. If you increase additional damping, then you might ask, well, how do we add additional damping to the system? Because the structure already has its damping. Well, there are different type of devices. These are called damping devices. So you could have viscous damper you can install in the structure. You could have friction damper, okay, which basically do plates sliding over each other, or there are different type of energy dissipation devices that you can add to the system to add additional damping, so that even it advertently, if you have not properly designed the system and by mistake, let us say the forcing frequency matches with the natural frequency of the system, your response would still be bounded. And how much would that response be? It depends on the value of damping. So that's why you basically add damping to the system so that there is no resonance like situation, and you can tackle those kind of issues. So the other bridge, the pedestrian bridge that you saw, which actually did not get damaged, but there was a lot of vibration, what that bridge needed to be closed, that pedestrian bridge, the Millennium Bridge, okay, in London. So they closed it, they again evaluated it. Okay, and the only way they found that they had done all the design, okay, only thing was that they did not anticipate what kind of forcing frequency would be due to the walking. Okay, so what did they do? They came back with viscous damper installed in that bridge. Okay, so that even if in some cases the forcing frequency, let us say walking, matches with the natural frequency of the pedestrian bridge, the response in that case would still be bounded. Is this point clear to all of you? The resonance for an undamped system and a damped system. It has a lot of practical utility in different type of systems you would see. Okay, let us turn our focus back to the original solution for the UT that we had. Okay, which was, remember we had cos omega dt here and sin omega dt. Okay, and then we had a second term, which is okay. So as I said, this is the transient part which will die down. Okay, and we typically do not consider this. Okay, so what we would be focusing on is basically steady state part. Okay, so basically the further investigation that we will be doing would be based on C sine omega t plus D cos of omega t. Okay, and this is the response that we would be evaluating, okay, the steady state response in the subsequent classes. Okay, now today's class I would like to finish it now